We are finally going to get to see the Yamaha V4 prototype take to a race weekend for the first time in 2025, and that'll be at Misano with Yamaha's test rider Augusto Fernandez. And after that, at the Misano test, a day later, we will see Fabio Quartararo testing it for the first time. We're here to look at how the bike is going to go, what stage they're at with the development, because that's a key factor in all this. Yamaha are committing with the V4, but will it be the bike next year? They still say they're making a deadline decision on whether they're going to run the Inline 4 or 26. I imagine it will be the V4, but let's take a closer look at it. So the discussion of a V4 Yamaha isn't, how can I say, it's not new. It's been around for so many years now, and they've of course made the step this year. And maybe last year they started the process of building the engine, and they have put it on track this year for testing with Augusto Fernandez and Andrea de Vito. So I believe when you hear the riders talk about it, they're very they don't give away much, essentially. So information around what the bike is performing like lap times is very limited. You hear whispers that it's, of course, not as fast because it's in the development stage still. And if Yamaha turned the thing up to 100, it would just be. It's running the risk of blowing up, essentially, isn't it? Because you're trying to put mileage on it to understand the different characteristics of the engine. Of course, they've run the inline 4 for forever, essentially, in MotoGP. They're the last of the dying breed of a manufacturer to run that. And of course, there's caveats to it. There's a benefit of having an inline compared to a V4. But when you look at the grid, everyone else has a V4 engine, and Yamaha don't. And when you look at the championship standings, the manufacturers, you could arguably say the contributing factor is the engine. But that's not saying the engine's solved for everything. Look at Honda for so many years with their V4. It was brutal. And it's only kind of progressively got better the past year and a bit. But the jump is for Yamaha to make this step. And it's essentially to try it without leaving the doubt if you didn't try it. And I think that Yamaha have a good base for a team to test it. Of course, you look at the riders that have used V4s in their lineup. So you have Andrea Dovizioso, of course, famed on the Honda Ducati in his time with MotoGP. Augusto Fernandez, KTM. You have Jack Miller, who looks like he's going to extend his contract. He's tried out Hondas, Ducati. He's been everywhere. KTM. Jack knows how the V4 works. Alex Rins, even at his time at Honda, it was only a season, but won a race on a V4, has experience of it. Fabio Quartararo is the outlier in all this, where he has no experience of a V4. He's only raced on the inline 4 throughout his time at MotoGP. Then you have Toprak Razgatlioglu, of course, who is a rookie coming in. He has no experience of a MotoGP machinery apart from a couple of tests on the Yamaha inline 4 back, 2 years ago. So Yamaha have a good base in terms of who they want to get on the bike and who understands the development. But the question is, like I say, is it going to be the bike that makes the step? Now we're going to see it at Misano, which of course, when you look at the characteristic of Misano, it's not a heavy circuit in terms of engine output. You don't need a massive engine to get away. But it's one of those circuits where it's good to test because you've got a lot of different styles of corners. You've got tight, twisty corners, like mid speed corners where you can carry, and then of course you got the really fast corners like Cavone on the back straight, where you can really understand different points of the engine and the bike. And this is not to remember, people kind of forget this. When you change engine, you're changing the bike philosophy, you're changing the character of the bike. It's not necessarily a case of just sticking a V4 engine into the current chassis and the setup of the Yamaha inline 4 now and making it just go around. You change the profile, you change the shape, you change just geometry points of the bike and how it feels. I think that's got to be really mentioned out there because a lot of people just think, yeah, you're going to have more power. That's not necessarily the case. You think about when I think of the last inline team, really, of course, won a race with Suzuki, and that was a bike that was excellent when you think about it for got to 8 years. But they changed the philosophy in the last year of their MotoGP adventure, as you could say, and they had an engine that was a Qatar. I remember it so well in 22. The same engine, they just changed it slightly and give it a lot more power. It changed the characteristic of that bike. It really was difficult to ride compared to the sweet handling Suzuki that we'd seen in years previous. They toned it down a bit in the 22 season, then it went back to kind of how it used to be, and they found that nice balance of having just enough acceleration and top end to kind of stay within the Ducati, but be faster than, say, a Honda or a Yamaha. And they were the best inline four machinery. They were the best Japanese machinery when they left the grid, in my opinion. So it just shows it's not all down to the engines. But I do think Quartararo's been asked about this a lot, and I think the Paolo Pavesio, the head of Yamaha, when he confirmed it, I'm not saying this indirectly, but I do think they're really pushing this project to show Fabio. I really do think that he can be the guy that, look, we're bringing these things, here it comes. Because Fabio was, how could I say, not losing his patience with Yamaha, but he is, I think he's getting swayed by other places and looking, thinking, I can't be here for much longer if I'm just going to be in the same position. So I think that Yamaha have really delivered on the timeline. They've really stuck to it, and they've actually probably over-delivered in terms of bringing it quicker. Yamaha are being tight-lipped, but Quartararo said if he tries it during the Misano test, or the first time he tries it, if he's in within half a second of his inline four time, he'll be pleased, and he'll see that as a progression to use it. Honestly, it's difficult to say if the bike will really fix issues with Yamaha, because people assume Yamaha have a really sweet handling bike. The past few years has been really difficult. I think that bike has got progressively heavier with the amount of aero that they've had to add to it. And you hear Quartararo, Rins, Miller, Oliveira talk about how physical it is to ride the Yamaha. When you think back 10 years ago, the Yamaha was, in my mind anyway, it's like a feather. You could just move it so nicely. It was just so light. You could turn into the corners. It was so really, really grippy on the front. But it's not like that anymore. And I think that this bike is obviously being tested with 27 in mind. I don't really know if you can change for a year and have it in the 2026 regulations, but is it going to be the fix for this current generation of regulations? I don't think so. So it's a bit of patience and a bit of trial and error with Yamaha to think, okay, well, if it doesn't work here, we could try it for 27. Or do they even stick with the inline, which would be something that they might consider, because if you get to the new regulations and the inline is suddenly the engine to have because it suits the new regulation of bike, that would be a real shame to lose that and not to try it. But who knows? I'm not an engineer, and I think that a V4, it'll sound different. You'll definitely hear a difference with the Yamaha. You'll hear videos, you'll hear riders talk about how different it feels. In terms of the race weekend, when Augusto Fernandez tries it, honestly, it'll be at the back. That's just the thing. If it comes out and it says beating the inline four, I'll be so surprised. But what to expect from it, it's essentially going around the log laps and just to build. I remember KTM doing this. Obviously, it's very different because they were new to MotoGP, but when they came to Valencia, I think was it 2016, they had a race weekend, and they were around the back of Mickey Callio. They were just logging laps, just getting it in there before their debut season in 2017. It's kind of like that for Yamaha, because they're just eager to get this bike out there and they want to get it on the grid, but patience. And I don't want fans saying, oh, it's terrible, because you're in a testing phase and you need to run things slightly lower than you can before you really open the taps and let it go. But I think it's good to Yamaha. It's exciting for MotoGP for someone to be bringing a different project so late on in the regulation cycle, but also a manufacturer that says Yamaha really getting it out there to say, this is our plan, we're sticking to it, let's deliver it. And they've got a great team with Augusto Fernandez, Andrea Dovizioso as well, and all the engineers are really, really just dead set on making this work, and I hope that they can. But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'm excited to see it on track. Yeah, Yamaha V4 chat. Finally going to get to see it in the next 2 rounds. And yeah, optimistic. I hope so. Will it work? We'll have to wait and see. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, like I say. Subscribe if you're brand new, and we'll see you next time.